So that very first duplex, right? I lived in the alleyway, right? That little crappy house, and had the tenant there. This is in Aberdeen, Washington. So Aberdeen, Washington, technically Hoquiam, Washington, but it's Grays Harbor County, Washington, which is famous only for one thing. So Grays Harbor is famous because that's where Nirvana came out of. So remember Kurt Cobain, Nirvana, that whole thing came out of Aberdeen. So anyway, so my house there, this little crappy duplex, after about a year of owning it, the tenants were like, hey, people keep taking pictures of our house. And I was like, what do you mean taking pictures of the house? They're, yeah, we just keep seeing flashes through our windows. And I was like, nah, the county must be reappraising or something, right? And then it went several years. Like, the tenant would be like, yeah, more people taking pictures. Couldn't figure it out for a while. Finally, we learned what it was when some Swedish tourists knocked on the door and they wanted a tour of the Cobain house.
No way.
And we're like, the Cobain house. And we find out, and I look it up online, and I find out it was the house he was born in, like on his birth certificate, like not literally on the floor, but like that's his parents, where his parents were in both houses. They lived in this little shack in the back where I lived when he was born. And then at 6 months old, they moved into the front house and they lived in that one. So I'm the only person who owns two of Kurt Cobain's former houses.
You still own it?
I actually just sold it a few months ago.
No, why would you sell that?
I know. Because,
seriously, if you can afford to hold on to that, that's a piece of history.
I know. It was cool, and I loved it. I had it for 15 years. It was cool, but the bragging rights, the cool story that it's fun to tell, right? It's a cool story. It wasn't worth just the mental headache of hanging on to that property.
What's the headache of holding?
It was in a crappy neighborhood. Like, it was in an alleyway. I mean, it's like, it just attracted like rough tenants. Like, I always like to say, like, rough houses attract rough tenants, and so like nasty properties attract nasty people. It just is what it is.
Do they know? Do the tenants know this is Kurt Cobain's house?
We tell the tenant after they move in, but I don't want to advertise it because I don't want the kind of person who would rent a house because it's Kurt Cobain. I would rent there. I don't know. I feel like
seriously, if I
you
mean,
may be able to charge higher rent.
Yeah,
you'd be able to charge higher rent.
But
you would attract a better tenant who could. See, here's the thing. I think it was a marketing problem because you're marketing this as a normal house.
I agree.
And that would attract those sort of tenants. You market this as Kurt Cobain's house.
Yeah.
You're in what was it, realist.com. You get in all the magazines and online print.
I did think of that because they were selling one of his other houses for like $1 million.
But so here's the thing. It's like you're going to attract a tenant who's okay with the less desirable area, even though they're a higher caliber tenant because it's Kurt Cobain's house and they get the bragging. It
was a crappy house though.
It doesn't matter.
Dumpy house.
It doesn't matter. I feel like that it's hard to replace that. Kurt Cobain's house in Hollywood is very similar to that, and it's run down. I think it's like empty, and you get these YouTube people who like sneak into the house to film it. But stuff like that, like you get a bit of a premium.
Yeah, we thought about turning it into Airbnb, and we kicked it around for a while, but I didn't want the headache of it. And then I thought about selling it as like it was like baby house, right? So it's not like there's another house in town where his writing is all over the walls. Like that house is like people are like, that's the Cobain house. I just have the baby house, so I kept it. And then finally I was like, here's actually why I sold it. I do what's called a return on equity calculation, right? So you look at how much equity you have in your property, how much you'd actually make if you sold it. And then you say, well, how much cash flow did I make last year compared to how much I would have if I sold it? And my return on equity was like 1.3%. I'm like, well, shoot, I'm making no money on this thing. I might as well just go and stick in the stock market and make more than 1%.